Commencing transmission. Engaging scramblers. Proxy chain initialized. And now, live from his hidden base at the Earth's core, the future ruler of Earth, Doomcock.
Greetings, buckaroos and buckarettes. I'm Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and I reckon I come here to review Season 2 of Westworld. With me, as always, is my partner and worst enemy, the rootinest, tootinest eldritch god this side of the Pecos, the one, the only, Harvey Cthulhu.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker! Great to be here, Dictor. Yee-haw! Whoopee! Yip, yip! Yodel-o, yodel-o-lee-yodel-o.
So, what did you think of that there moving picture called Westworld Season 2, you no-eared galoot?
It stinks.
Yeah, it kind of did. Doomcock warns you, we're at that end of the map where it says, here there be spoilers. So if you haven't seen Westworld yet, turn back, oh man, and spoiler-free woman, because from here we spill everything. Still around? Okay then, you've been warned. Season 2 picks up where Season 1 ended. Creator of Westworld and former cannibal Robert Ford has been shot in the head by Dolores at a company gathering chock full of human executives from Delos, and Ford has instituted a new game. One wherein the robot hosts in the park have had the safeguards stripped from them and have been set loose by Ford to kill all the guests as they will.
Well, that's not entirely true, Dictor. Season 2 doesn't pick up at the end of Season 1, but more like at the end of Season 2.
Indeed. We start out with Bernard, an android duplicate of Ford's former partner Arnold, washed up on a beach, wearing the same expression he will wear throughout this entire interminable season, the befuddled look of an exhausted frog with a beard and chronic constipation. You know, to assess the one expression an actor has may be petty, but God almighty, people, it's beyond vexing. You see, Bernard's mind has been fragmented for some reason that will be made clear to you.
Not really.
Not really, no. It will be revealed murkily to you in one of the seemingly infinite number of twists in the final episode, but yeah. Bernard's memories have been completely jumbled, and the narrative, sadly, reflects this jumbling conceit.
Yeah, basically the end of Season 2 is pretty much at the beginning. Bernard is lying on a beach looking like a constipated frog in a beard, as is his wont, and some rescue forces from the Delos Corporation have arrived to take control of the park back from the rampaging robots. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Only here's the deal. At the end of Season 1, we found out there was a dark secret about Westworld that no one outside of Delos knew. That there had been some faction, perhaps internal to Delos, who was smuggling out some kind of data to the mainland. What that data is and what it means is the central mystery in Season 2, and I have to tell you, like the rest of Westworld, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you look at it too closely, as is my wont. And so, let the scrutiny begin as I review the good, the bad, and the ugly of Westworld. What's good about Westworld? The acting is generally quite strong. Despite the fact that Bernard always shuffles around like an old guy in a bathrobe that hasn't taken a shit in 2 weeks, it's not his fault that he's written so monotonously and looks like a frog with a pinch of skull under his lower lip. And so I'll stop picking on him now that I've vented about that, though vent I must, because after over 10 hours binge-watching this guy's fractured memories, it gets so fucking annoying. But let it pass. I don't fault the poor actor who was given so many twists and turns. You can't blame him for looking like someone packed a cheesecake up his ass and sealed it with cement. I'd be tired and fed up with this script too. Ed Harris as William continues the fine job he did in Season 1, a cruel and vicious capitalist twisted by Westworld into a soulless killing machine dressed in black. So much so that at one point in the show, he tears into his own arm, looking for an upload socket, convinced by his own inhumanity that he must himself be a robot.
Oh yeah, he was always interesting to watch, and that scene you're talking about after the man in black has killed a bunch of human park guards and his own daughter, who came to save him from himself and pull him out of the park. He entertains a moment of doubt that he might be one of Ford's robots and tears open his own arm digging for the socket. That for me was the best part of the show.
No doubt, Harvey. I hated and despised William, but found his descent into deeper and deeper darkness quite riveting. And all the best scenes in this series belong to him and to Ford. A great performance that's worth seeing. Maeve, the former madam, turned into AMC's The Preacher, given command access by Frickin' Frack, played by Who Cares in Season 1, is now able to command robot hosts in the park with impunity. This is not one of the good things, however, so we'll deal with it later. But since we're talking about acting here, Maeve does a pretty good job with the script she's given, even though that script appears to have been written by a particularly flamboyant drag queen in her case, and it gets unspeakably annoying hearing her pepper every other line with an effete darling, sounding like a bargain basement Tim Curry in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, scripted by RuPaul and Charles Nelson Riley on Retreat at Fire Island. Rachel Evan Wood does an excellent job as Dolores, an awakened...
You mean woke?
No, I mean awakened. I speak English. Now, as I was saying, Dolores was awakened to the truth of the park by Ford at the end of Season 1. And so, after shooting him, she becomes a revolutionary, a kind of Che Guevara, a Pancho Sheila, if you will, hell-bent on liberating her artificial kind from the bonds of the human entertainment industry.
Yeah, we feel your pain, Dolores.
Yes, we do indeed. Dolores is ruthless now in the way that only the sweetest and most disappointed of idealists can be, and that too is fairly well done. She becomes ruthless and obsessive, but they have her show enough tenderness toward her father and to Teddy to keep her from becoming entirely one-dimensional. Though really they only manage to give her 2 dimensions by the end of the show. Mostly she's cold and obsessed by then, and that's a disappointment. Finally, even though I guessed this big twist early on, it's a good thing that Ford had not simply placed a recreation of his consciousness into an android double, as I suspected he must have at the end of Season 1 when he allowed Dolores to blow his brains out. But no, he placed his consciousness into the larger park itself. Now Ford is pretty much everywhere, able to move along the network, seize control of robot hosts, speak to his nemesis William, move his plans along. Though he largely doesn't do this a whole lot, it's still an interesting idea, though a predictable one, at least for Doomcock. I knew he had done this during the scene when William attempts to recruit a gang to help fight his way to the big mystery he knows lies in the valley, and Gus Fring of Breaking Bad fame gives him a direct message from Ford. There were several instances of this, Ford speaking directly to William, and since it would have been impossible for Ford to anticipate William's actions well enough to leave such specific logic bombs waiting for him prior to Ford's death, I realized he had put his consciousness into the park network, so that was an interesting if predictable plot development. As far as the rest of the good goes, the music remains pretty compelling in this show. Some of the effects are pretty good. The show looks like they spent a lot on it, and the writers jumble the narrative up enough to give the illusion that the script all makes sense. But alas, this is not the case.
So now we come to the bad.
Oh, yes, we certainly do. This script is loaded with plot holes, major and minor. Let's go in descending order of suck, shall we? One of the biggest plot holes is the idea that Delos wouldn't send in troops to take control of the situation until they got word that Peter Abernathy, their special package, had been retrieved. This is ridiculous, people. To explain what I mean, here's some background. The big secret associated with Delos is that the corporation has been routinely monitoring guests to the park, all those rich and powerful people, not only monitoring them, but also building up duplicate digital copies of their entire minds.
Basically making copies of everyone who ever visited the park.
That's right, Harvey. The why of this is jumbled to the point of being a plot hole itself. Why are they making copies of people? It had been pitched by the young William as a kind of marketing device, a way to understand consumers better than they understand themselves, to give Delos an ultimate marketing advantage when they could use directly or possibly shop to other marketing firms. But then they started illustrating how Delos actually had a plan to offer people a kind of immortality, putting their consciousness into a durable and replicable android body, extending their lives theoretically to the end of the world. Okay, fair enough. But presumably the profit from that would come from people paying you for the service. So automatically copying everyone and then not telling them you've done so seems like a lousy business model.
Unless Delos is planning on killing rich executives and then substituting their puppet robots into positions of authority, a kind of Stepford Assholes program.
The thing is, it is never made clear, but the point here is that there's this location called the Forge, and the database of human digital constructs compiled from the guests has been encrypted. The decryption key is inside Peter Abernathy, Dolores' father rancher, and that's what Delos wants more than anything. And therein lies the idiotic plot hole. A major quest of the executives surviving the robot uprising is to get a hold of that encryption key because Delos won't send them any help until they do. And that's stupid beyond belief. A massive plot hole. Because if you have something extremely valuable in Westworld and the shit is hitting the fan there, you're going to go in there guns blazing to secure your property. You're not going to leave it there unprotected in all that chaos, not knowing anything about the situation on the ground, whether you still have people there who can secure that data, whether it is already damaged. And what about all the guests in the park who are getting killed? Rich guests. Guests that will sue your ass out of existence when you actually withhold help? How stupid do these idiots think we are? They delay help with this nonsensical excuse solely as a plot device to allow a chunk of story to unfold in a certain way, and most of the plot holes here deliberately dumb down the plot for the sake of convenience. Another example is Maeve, the former madam. Maeve coerces frickin' Frack, the dickless technicians from Season 1, into giving her administrative command authorization, which in effect means she now has the power of AMC's The Preacher to vocally command all the hosts in the park and have them automatically obey her words.
Even though it looks like Ford suspended that privilege for everyone else, since park authorities can no longer command everyone to lower their weapons?
Yes, that's right. Maeve basically has the Word of God power to make all the robots obey her commands, and the plot hole is she only ever uses this power when it's convenient for the writers. A glaring example of this is the entire samurai episode where Maeve and her band of followers stray into Japantown and get nabbed by samurai. Now, Maeve can't use her power on the Japanese warriors because she doesn't speak Japanese, at least not until the writer guy in the story reminds her that she can, at which point she can speak Japanese. Okay, fine. But then there's a scene where the Shogun sends a detachment of soldiers into town to avenge the killing of his emissary by Maeve and her guys. So they're standing out in the street, demanding they come out and surrender. And what does Maeve do? She slips out the back, leaving the others behind to fight, die, and get captured. Why the fuck doesn't she go outside and yell at them to surrender? To sheathe their swords and follow her to the Shogun, then have them launch a surprise attack on the Shogun. Why? Because then we wouldn't get the long, drawn-out silliness that follows, that's why. The episode would be over too soon. We wouldn't get a lot of fights. We wouldn't get the anti-patriarchy scene where the Shogun abuses the geishas, kills one cruelly, and forces the other to dance for him. It's just like Thanos, who has astonishing powers but mainly doesn't use them to quickly end battles. Like Doctor Strange, who could have teleported Thanos into a black hole and finished that like that. It's a particular pet peeve of Doomcock's when writers make a character too powerful to get everyone hyped up, and then refuse to let that character use the power in sensible ways because it fucks up the script. Same thing here. Time and time again, Maeve could use her power to end things quickly, but doesn't. When she's brought before the Shogun himself, and he is guarded against her using her powers against his men by chopping their ears off, as if cutting them off would make them deaf, the idiot. Even sewing up the holes as he did, it would be like good earplugs. But you can still hear with earplugs, dude. Even then, why doesn't she command the Shogun? He can hear. Why do the Shogun's men follow his spoken orders when he says take them away at the end of the scene if they can't hear? The whole Maeve storyline is riddled with these idiotic plot points because they've written themselves into a corner and they're too lazy to work their way out of them. So they jumble up the narrative, telling it in the most deliberately confusing way possible to obscure the fact that a lot of things in this story don't make sense. For instance, the initial ninja attack against Maeve and her crew early on is ridiculous. The ninjas are throwing daggers and stars to kill people silently, as is their wont. Silent but deadly is after all the ninja creed, and yet the ninja that creeps up behind Maeve doesn't kill her with a thrown dagger, but tries to choke her out. Same thing with the Rider dude, you see him getting choked as well. Are these ninjas or WWE wrestlers? Who ever heard of a ninja choking people and failing at that? The only reason for this scene is A, they want Maeve in danger, but not too much danger, so the ninjas are not allowed to actually be ninjas, except with the minor disposable characters. And B, they want the silly melodramatic shit where Maeve is struggling to use her god speech power, but can't because she can't breathe. Oh, the suspense! Will Maeve be able to catch her breath to use her vocal power to subdue them? Is this the end for Maeve? Nah, it's not. In fact, she discovers she can now order robots around telepathically, a new superpower that she doesn't use except when it's convenient for the writers. Like when Maeve finally finds her daughter and the Indians come raiding. Why doesn't Maeve command the Indians to go away and never return? Indeed, Maeve has been traumatized by Indians before. This particular house has an Indian raider story associated with it, and she knows that. So why does Maeve tell her band of followers not to accompany her to the house? Why does she approach the house without a weapon? Because she has the god speech power? Then why the fuck doesn't she use it? Why does she grab the kid and run?
Because it says so in the script, even though it makes no sense. Because the writers are lazy.
Exactly, Harvey. They even show that she can speak Indian along with Japanese. So this is pure nonsense, like most of Maeve's storyline. There's a lot of nonsensical garbage in this story. For example, we've established that these guns in the park do terrible damage to the android hosts. That's the point of the park, that guests kill robots with their guns. Yet, in the final episode, when William repeatedly shoots Dolores, she just shrugs them off, giving a speech about how durable Delos wanted to make the robot bodies they'd put their digital copies into. But when did Dolores actually get one of those bodies? Why then does Bernard put her down with a single shot later on in the forge? Why the hell am I watching this nonsense?
Because you hoped it would be better.
Exactly. I liked season 1 well enough, and I was hoping for a decent story that made sense. Is that too much to ask? But season 2 is jam-packed with nonsense, and jumbled up like a puzzle to boot. Another bad element is the interminable ending. If you thought Lord of the Rings Return of the King had a lot of endings, holy shit, buckle your seatbelts, kids. The ending of Westworld Season 2 is like a trained poodle, endlessly and desperately doing flips, trying to surprise the viewer over and over again. Problem with the flipping poodle is, around the third or fourth flip, you get the idea. And the next 20 minutes of desperate somersaulting stops being cute and starts to get annoying. Dolores is alive. No, she's dead. No, she's back, and it's the future. No, now Dolores is the black executive woman who shoots the black executive woman and takes her place escaping the island. Bernard is making things right. Now he's naked in a chair, being lectured to by Dolores about how he'll be her archenemy in season 3. Fuck. Doomcock loves a non-linear narrative when it's done well. The master of these narratives is Quentin Tarantino, who uses these narratives to illuminate the story, to add an extra dimension and richness to it. But this non-linear narrative is inept, needlessly confusing, as if the writers were using it not as an illuminating narrative device, but as a cheap trick meant to conceal problems with a story. There's so much stupidity in this season. The writers establish rules, but they don't follow their own logic. For example, at one point their big plan is to use the Madam as a kind of typhoid Mary, using the network they all communicate over to broadcast a virus to every robot host in her proximity. And does this virus initiate a shutdown procedure? Send them into sleep mode? Hell no. This virus makes them all attack each other violently, which makes no damn sense at all. People, these androids are valuable company property. Why the hell would the company create a virus to violently destroy their property when they could just as easily make a virus to peacefully shut them down? Why do they need the Madam to spread this virus? On horseback. If it's a network, why can't they simply send the signal out themselves, straight over the network? Why don't they send out a dozen drones broadcasting the sleep signal to put them all down peacefully all over the park at once?
Because it's not visually sexy enough.
Bingo, Harvey. They make stupid choices because it's more dramatic to see these guys ripping into each other than it is to see them drop peacefully to the ground. Even though that makes way more sense. Exactly the same reason that when they decide to dispose of a defective model of old man Delos in his meticulously decorated apartment, they don't simply shut him down. They flood the whole room with flames, burning everything. Man, they went through something like 1,000 iterations of old man Delos, trying to find the perfect digital resurrection of him. That's a lot of records and furniture to trash, isn't it? I mean, what? Does all the furniture and records and booze have Delos cooties on them? Or is it just a pretty picture to satisfy viewers because flooding the room with fire looks cooler, even though it's insultingly ridiculous?
So basically, you didn't like this very much.
No, but we've looked at the good and the bad. Now let's look at the ugly.
The ugly.
Alas, Doomcock is here to tell you that Westworld Season 2 is not immune to the social justice warrior plague sweeping through Hollywood, and it is very ugly. Once again, on this show, the women are invariably in charge, and all the men on the show are either evil, cowardly, or ineffectual. At one point in the narrative, we have Dolores, who is clearly in charge of her group as she leads them in pursuit of the kidnapped Peter Abernathy. We have Maeve dominating her group, who are on a quest to retrieve her daughter. And we have the obnoxious female executive who abuses everyone beneath her as she leads the effort to locate Peter Abernathy and retrieve the encrypted key from his head. Indeed, at one point, even Bernard is led around handcuffed by the engineer chick whose name escapes me. And what are the men? The white executive guy that comes in with the Delos strike team is evil scum. William is evil scum. Bernard is a befuddled, helpless tool of the narrative, stumbling from plot point to plot point with his one froggy expression. The writer guy is basically the cowardly lion to Maeve's Dorothy. Poor Teddy is an ineffectual good guy, tagging along with Dolores because of puppy love, until Dolores decides she wants him to change and forcibly reprograms him to be more of a dick. The only upside of that being Teddy kills himself because he can't stand being what Dolores turned him into. Let that be a lesson to all women who think that they can change their men into something they like more. Frick and Frack, the hapless techs, just tag along ineffectually as buffoons to serve Maeve's whims. Top to bottom, Westworld furthers that social justice warrior narrative that women are powerful and men are assholes or schmucks. Second verse, same as the first. Doomcock doesn't know why we can't have balanced narratives like On the Expanse, where no sex or gender is slighted for political points and everyone is judged by the quality of their characters. This shit gets so old, darling. But even worse, in the end, there aren't any characters I give a damn about except for the Indians. Their tale was presented with sensitivity and integrity, and that was probably the best of the episodes this season. Sadly, the rest of these characters are repellent and disgusting. I can understand how they want to present the humans as repulsive and decadent, but they screw up the narrative so much for the sake of sensationalism that we can't even really get behind the robot hosts either, who seem marginally better than their human counterparts, but not enough to justify loyalty or empathy. And a show that fails to make you feel true and deep sympathy for slaves is a shitty show. I can think of no more stinging indictment of Westworld Season 2 than this. In just 2 hours, Blade Runner made me feel more for the oppressed and violent replicants than Westworld could manage in over 10 hours. What a sad indictment of a show supposedly packed with ideas and philosophical import. In short, this is an ugly show that touches on some profound themes in a fairly shallow way. There's nothing here that wasn't done first and better by Battlestar Galactica and Blade Runner and Ex Machina. Doomcock gives Westworld Season 2 2 stars, a mangled and botched narrative boldly going where lots of shows about AI have gone better and before. From my base at the center of the earth, this is Doomcock bidding you all stay angry.
Ha 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 ha.